My name is Dr. Carlos Rivera. I was once a pediatrician who cherished caring for the children in my beloved practice. To my horror, that would be lost forever once I entered the twisted world of family court. Once tangled in its web, I learned of a judicial system that was far from what I was taught to believe in and once revered. A world rife with unscrupulous attorneys and a judiciary seduced by Title IV defunding and abuse of their powers. A world that claims to operate under the guise of acting in the best interests of the children, yet conducts itself in a manner with seemingly depraved indifference to the suffering of children and loving parents. Prior to my experience, I knew nothing of parental alienation. Countless tears later, I know it all too well. Now I'm here, traveling the roads of the U.S. to let others tell their stories, in the hopes of one day changing the current culture of divorce and bringing an end to the victimization and suffering of innocent children, their parents, and all who love them. These are their stories.
Hey Gary, what's up?
How you doing?
Good.
So Gary, I'm really here to talk to you about divorce and how it's affected your life. I want to know a little bit about who you were before the divorce and then what happened.
Well, you know, I think people identify, I know for me anyway, identify myself by my family and my job. And that determines, you know, who you are as a person and as a man. And for me, the number one priority is my children. I always wanted to have kids. I love children. And I had 3 great kids. So that was really my identity. You know, when you went out, you know, what do? You talk about what your kids did, what you do at work. And I was definitely a different person, besides being skinnier and having more hair.
Maybe two of us.
But we joke about it, but it took a tremendous toll on my health. You know, I was in divorce court or family court for 11 years. So that prolonged stress takes its toll. You know, some people, when they get stressed out, they don't eat. Unfortunately, I'm the other side, and I'm a stress eater, you know, because you lose control of so many things when you're in court. You lose control of your finances. Everybody's grabbing money from you, and the courts are basically turning you into an ATM. So your whole life changes. So for me, it was sort of like a realignment after my divorce, and there's a transition period in the middle. Like now, I have friends, because I've been out of court for so many years, and I haven't had contact with my children. They haven't spoken to me in about 8 years now. So I have many friends who never even knew me as a father, which to me is strange. Mm-hmm. I don't blame them, but they just never knew me as a father and who I was. So that's like a real big transition for me, to go from being a father and a parent to now I'm not. I guess I'm like a single guy, and you know, people look at me and go, "Oh, Gary, you got the best life. You know, you do what you want. You got no strings attached. You and your girlfriend travel all over the place." And that's true. I do that. But that's because I had to realign my life.
I want to go back a second, because you had 3 children. Right. 2 you had with your ex, and 1 she had prior to your relationship. Right. Maybe tell us a little bit about the kids, and you know, so people understand, you know, how you committed to these 3 children.
Right. Well, when I got married, to my wife, she had a child from her first marriage. I think he was about 4 or 5 when we met, and probably so I guess he was like 5, 6, or 7 when we got married. And her story, you know, was unusual. There was no father in his life. I didn't know any better, and I asked her. I said, you know, where's his father? It's so sad, because you know, he was a great kid. And she said, well, he didn't want to be a father. He wanted nothing to do with him. So when he got caught, I don't remember actually what the story was. I found out the truth after, but that she said he wanted nothing to do with his kid, and he got up and he left, and he moved to Texas and never came back. Throughout the marriage, even, I found out that wasn't the truth, because he had called a couple times and said he wanted to see his son, and she was freaking out, like she didn't want him to see him. I thought it was strange, but I'm like, you know, I'll let it go. You know, he doesn't really try that hard. Like, he would sort of give up. So I'm like, all right, maybe he is a jerk. You know, who am I to know? And that was at the beginning of our marriage, when I didn't know that my wife had something wrong with her. You know, I knew that she was not really a sensitive person. but I didn't know that how deep it was. Started to get in. But so I adopted her son after we got married because I felt bad for the kid. I said, he doesn't have, his father he has no contact with, and it's going to be hard going through life. He's going to have a different name than our family and not have a father. So I adopted him. My whole family took him in just as if he was actually, my parents would always say, he's the first grandchild because my brother and sister didn't have kids at that point. So he was really special to everybody in my family, my parents, my grandparents, brothers, sisters, we really took him in. And I consciously I made an effort to make sure that I treated him as if he was my biological son because I don't want him to feel like he was a second-class citizen. And he was a good kid, so it wasn't hard. But even when I had, after that, we had a son together with my wife, and I made sure that the oldest one that I adopted, her biological son, was treated even more specially. I almost even went over the top a little bit to consciously say I don't want him to ever have any issues, that he doesn't feel like he's not the same as the other kids. And he was a good kid. He really was, and he was respectful. We never had any problems. I love him. Really, I have to say, I love him just like he was my son. I didn't think of it like he was less of a child than the other kids. I really didn't. And I was with him since he was young. And then we had another, so we had the son, and then we had a daughter about 2 years after that. We had a daughter. And they were good kids. They were all really good kids. They were all different, of course. The one that they adopted, he was different than the other ones, because we weren't genetically the same. But he was just a sensitive, good kid, very smart. Then the son that we had together, he was definitely more like me, very, very sensitive, smarter than me. But he was just, he loved animals, he loved nature, very, very inquisitive, community oriented. I mean, of course, he was younger at the time, but when it came to doing stuff around, if I say we're going to volunteer, he would do it and do it happily. And my daughter was different in her ways, but she was sensitive. She definitely had my love for animals, which is what I love animals, and she always wanted animals, and I encouraged that. So we had dogs, we had cats, we had fish. She had sugar gliders that she loved, and whatever she did,
so it was a nice household.
So we had a good household. I was definitely the primary caregiver. My wife would go through the motions, but when it came to emotion, I realized that she had none. There was no physical touching and hugging the kids and, telling them I love you. And I guess I didn't really know what it was, but I think it was like more, to me at the time, I would say it was I was sort of like, wow, she's a selfish person, I know she got like that with me. But then I saw it with the kids. For example, the oldest son, Casey, he was into swimming. And the swimming was very intense. It was like 4 or 5 days a week. You had to go to Stony Brook and take him to the swim classes and sit there for an hour or two. And she said, I don't want to sign him up for that. I said, why not? She said, I'm not going every day. I got bowling. I want to go to the gym. It takes up too much time. She only worked part-time. But I fit it into my schedule, to do it. Take them on vacations. She never wanted to take them on vacations. She would just be happy, really sitting around. She sort of coexisted with them, I think.
I kind of want to touch base on, do you think, it appears like from what you're describing, there was an emotional distance. Do you think that contributed to things, to a slippery slope where you eventually were divorced, or there were other factors involved in the dissolution of your marriage?
Well, I wouldn't say we didn't really fight, like per se, like that people would say. I'm not a fighter, so it made it hard for her. She would just do things, and I'd say, man, why is she doing something so selfish? But I would just let it go because I didn't want to get divorced. I didn't want to have my kids grow up in a divorced family, so I would, eat a lot of crow. But I would just do it the way I looked at it. I'll just do it on my own. For example, I wanted my kids to be healthy and have organic, natural foods, and thank God I made a good living and we were able to afford that. So I would buy, milk without hormones and cage-free eggs, and it sounds crazy, but then once in a while I would say, hey, can you run out to the store and pick up stuff? And she would come home with all the cheapest brands, and I'd say, listen, can you at least buy the milk, organic, it has hormones in it, and she would say, no, I don't want to. So to me, it's like a passive aggressive type thing.
Well, what eventually did lead up to the breakup? Like, what was the breaking point for you?
So I sort of got to the point eventually when I said, man, I started to realize really something wasn't right with her, that she had no connection with the kids. And I thought about getting divorced, but I said, how am I going to leave my kids? I figured I would get custody, or at least 50-50. But I said, how am I going to leave my kids with her? Because they would have no emotional support. She would literally, Carlos, not teach them morals. In fact, she would teach them bad morals. I remember sitting in the yard one day when her niece was talking about how she had a boyfriend, but she liked another boy. And I specifically remember, I can remember where we're sitting in the corner by my pool, and my wife telling her, listen, just cheat on him. You're young, go out and cheat. And my kids were all sitting there, and I'm saying, who does this? Who tells them to do that? They were doing construction. I live across the street from a school, and they were doing construction, and they were leaving their construction equipment outside the yard. And my wife decided she wanted to get some wood to make a project of hers. And she wanted the kids to go help her steal the stuff. And I said, hey, you can't teach the kids to go steal. Anyway, she says, well, you help me. I said, I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to steal. So she waited till I went to work, and she took the kids across the street and told them to steal. I mean, these are just little messages that the kids got, and she just didn't care.
We had these conversations, over time. What was the factor that led up to the divorce, the breaking point?
Right. Well, this is crazy. So I suspected that my wife was having an affair, and it just, in my mind, you just know that she's doing it. She was sneaking, she wouldn't answer. My kids would call me when I was at work and say, hey, we can't get a hold of mom. Do you know where she is? We've been trying for 2 hours. So I suspected it. We ended up going to a marriage counselor, and I told him, I told the lady, I said, look, I think my wife's having an affair. And she looked at this woman straight in the eyes and said, there's no way I'm doing that. It's all in his head. He's crazy. He's something wrong with him. I'm a terrific wife. And really was mad that I would accuse her of it. So we end up, she says, we should have separate therapy sessions. So we call her in. She meets her first. She meets me. And she says, Gary, look, I couldn't tell you if she was because of privilege, but I can tell you I met with her, and there is no way in hell that she's having an affair. This is all in your head, so there's something wrong with you, that you're thinking this, and we need to deal with this problem with you. I said, wow. So now I get home, and I'm thinking, man, maybe I am the crazy one. I remember telling my friend, his name is Bob Rahivi, and I said, Bob, look, this is what happened. He goes, Gary, you're not crazy. You got your shit together. So he says, why don't we do this? Why don't we hire a private investigator, and I'll pay for it? And I said, no, I'll do it. And he said, you'll find out either way. So we ended up getting a private investigator. We put a GPS tracking device in her car. First day, I catch her cheating with one guy. A week later, another guy. It
didn't take much time.
A couple weeks later, a third guy.
Wow.
So I find out that it's not, and to make, and what, to me, what's, you say, oh, what's the difference? She was cheating. To me, what's worse about it, it'll be one thing, hey, you fell out of love, you fell in love with somebody else, but to be cheating with 3 different people. One was her best friend's husband. One was somebody from college, and I don't know where she met the other guy who was married. 2 of the 3 were married, and
you did also mention some proximity to the home you were living in.
Yeah, well, the one was is still right across the street from me. Was her best friend's husband, yeah. And in fact, his mother. I found out after his mother caught them kissing on the side of my house. So they're rubbing it in. It was so much, but. Just that it wasn't like she fell in love with somebody and was doing, and she was running around. I ended up after that, I had private investigators following her and listening her in. And I didn't file for divorce at that point. I said, let me sit down and figure this out. I want to get all my evidence together so that when I go to court, I won't lose custody of my kids. And so the guy starts listening and sitting with her at the bar, and she's literally making a joke of the fact that I'm working so hard and she's out with all these guys. In fact, at my son's 10th birthday party, and this is one of the things when I realized I had to do it right away, there was no going back. My son's 10th birthday party, we went to a hotel nearby, and we had a whole bunch of kids sleep over. We had 2 rooms, and they were all swimming in the pool. And she says, I gotta go, Gary. I said, what are you gonna do? We got a whole bunch of kids. I just don't feel good. I gotta go home. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Can you please just sit in the room? So I have another adult. No, I can't. So I called my mother. I said, Mom, please come. I need help. There's 10 boys. I got to watch them. She comes down. In the meantime, I have a tracking device on her car and private investigators. Long story short, that night, she leaves the hotel, gets in the car, and now she's laughing with her boyfriend how I'm such a sucker, and she hopes none of the kids drowned because these two are going out. She ends up going out to Skipper's Pub in Huntington and Northport, and then goes out to the guy's house. And the whole time, though, laughing, just hysterical, making fun of me with the boyfriend, how I'm stuck with these kids and she hopes they don't drown. But it gets worse. On the way back from that night, they start joking about, and they're in a bar actually, and they're talking about how my son's birthday party is coming up and she's going to put Visine in mine and my mother's drinks at the party. She literally gets out of the car, goes into the Walgreens or CVS, buys the Visine, gets back in the car. Now to top it off, she tells the boyfriend, I'm going to go to the dollar store and buy the worst toilet paper I can get so that when they start shitting their brains out, they have bad toilet from the Visine. They have bad toilet paper. So now I have to. At that point, I hadn't told my family. I didn't want to involve them. I had to tell my mother, "Hey, Mom, don't drink at the birthday party because Taryn's going to be putting Visine in our drinks," which of course she proceeded to do. But I couldn't break it because I couldn't let this go out because I needed a little bit more time to get all my things in order. But there was at that point you realize there's no going back. She was putting things on my toothbrush, to get it dirty. I had to have a fake toothbrush. It just got really out of hand. And I guess because I let it go on, she was empowered to just keep. Yeah. And she used to call it getting into trouble. She would tell, and the worst, one of the worst part, one of the bad thing was, it was sort of like the joke was on me because all her girlfriends knew. She told many of them that she was doing this because they had to cover for her. And she would call it getting into trouble. Oh, I'm going to get it. And in fact, she had a friend down the street, Cindy, who she was trying to encourage to have an affair with her husband as well.
Mm-hmm. So, I want to talk a little bit because I do know a little bit about you. We know each other well. Some of the high conflict. You were actually living together in the house while this was going on. Right. So maybe you could let people know a little bit, like what was life like when you're living in the same house? Well,
this is the house that I was in. We were married with the kids. So when I decided, look, I can't let this go on anymore. She's trying to poison me. She's preparing the kids to be turned against me. I said, I got to do something. I can't go on anymore. So I'm going to file for divorce. I get everything in order, and I file for divorce. And I hired at the time I thought it was a good lawyer. I guess that's an oxymoron. But exactly. And he tells me, look, if you really want to get custody, you cannot move out of the house, number one, because then you'll never get back in and she'll have default custody. She'll just drag it on for years. Number two, you always have to have a tape recorder or a video recorder or a nanny cam on you because based on what you tell me, she's going to get you kicked out of the house and make a false allegation. Not she may, she is going to do this. I didn't know any better. I said, okay. I was a great customer at Radio Shack. I had digital voice recorders on my pocket. At that point, there was an iPhone, so you couldn't record. And so I filed for divorce. And, we're living in the house because she's not going to move out, and I'm not going to move out. I did offer her at one point when we talked at the beginning, and I said, look, I'll share custody with you 50-50. Nope. Every father loses, and you're going to be out of the house and you're sleeping on the couch. I said, I'm not sleeping on the couch. I'm the breadwinner in the family. I need a good night's sleep. So first there was the battle for the bedroom, where I came home from work and she's in the bedroom and she says, get out of the bed. I said, listen, I'm working. I get the bed. You sleep on the couch. All the fathers sleep on the couch. Well, not this father. So I got in the bed and she finally got out of the bed. And this went on a couple nights until she finally ended up moving into the den because she went to court actually and asked the court to have me kicked out of the bedroom. And thank God by that point I had fired my shitty lawyer and 3 lawyers later I got a good lawyer and he fought it and he said no, the guy's got just as much right to his kids. Now of course they're laughing when you're saying he has just as much right to his kids because the judge knows, hey, this guy's a father, he's never getting custody. But they play the game. Nope, I'm not going to do that. She would try to order that I couldn't record her anymore. And the judge wouldn't. He told me not to, but he wouldn't order it. And so we lived in the house literally for over 2 years without speaking. Text messaging.
Extremely hard to do.
Very stressful with her constantly trying to get me to hit her. Now, I'm not a violent person, and I never did, but I always had the recording on me till one day she snapped. She couldn't take it anymore. Now, remember, I got a private investigator, and she would tell everybody about what her plan was to screw me. because she was proud of it. She would go to work and sit in the cafeteria at Stony Brook and tell everybody how she was going to get me kicked out of the house and all this. So I sort of knew, like a step ahead. So she was her plan was to go to court. Her lawyer was going to have me do all the repairs in the house because I lived here, and then they were going to kick me out.
You did mention, in our conversations before about certain stories with the pets, locks on the bedroom doors,
right.
Leaving a mess in the house.
There's a lot of stories. So we're living in the house now. We're doing a forensic evaluation, psychological evaluation, to determine who would be the best custodial parent. And the psychiatrist, I'm not sure what she is. She says, okay, we're going to do a parenting schedule, which would be like the optimal divorce schedule, 50 and 50, which is what you want. And let's see how this would work out. And the idea is that if you can't comply with this, you're never going to comply with the court order. So it makes sense. So she says, okay, Gary, you'll have these days. Taryn, you'll have these days. And first she refused to do it. Her lawyer fought because she was alienating the kids. She didn't want to lose that contact. I'll just go in my room when he has the kids. Which was the den. So, of course, the kids know she's there. That's not having a relationship. Finally, she agrees to leave. But what she would do is, we had a dog at the time who had a sensitive stomach. So what she would do is, on her time, like she had to leave for the weekend. So on the Friday, right before she left, she would give the dog all the table scraps so that the dog would shit its brain out the whole weekend when I had the dog. And I didn't catch on at the beginning. But then after like 2 or 3 times, I'm like,
it dawned on you.
I said, well, so I told her, look, you got to stop doing this. And if you don't stop doing it, I'm going to leave it and you're going to clean it up. She did it again. And I have pictures, which hopefully, maybe we'll show them on the show, of I left the piss and the shit all over the floor through my whole weekend. I kept the kids out of the room. And then she had it there for her week.
Must have smelled wonderful.
It smelled horrible. It was diarrhea. And then finally dried up. But let me tell you, never had diarrhea again. Another trick that she did was, she had cats. They were hers, really. She brought them home. And I love animals, but I didn't love having cats in the house because the hair was all over. And so they were basically her cats. And once in a while, they would have accidents in the house. They would poop in the plants, actually.
Okay.
So what she would do when I'd come back from a business trip, she was so furious that I had the master bedroom that she would put cat shit in my bed. And the first couple times I said, why are the cats going in my bed? But I said, cats are funny. Maybe they realize I'm gone. So then the last time I did it, I made my bed, tight as can be. And I get back and I pull the sheets back and there's shit all over the place. I said, motherfucker, she's putting cat shit, which is a horrible, This is the kind of horrible things that she was doing to try to get me to snap. Of course, she was sitting in her bed and the couch with her tape recorder on, hoping that I would do something.
And push you over the edge.
Push me over the top. It ended up that of course I never did, but one day she lost it, which is what I think was a turning point, and she came in and yelled at me for leaving my clothes in the washing machine and told me, if you leave them in the washing machine ever again, I'm going to throw them all over your office and I'm going to call the cops. And she lost her mind. She couldn't hold it in that I wouldn't snap. And she says, anything you do, I'm going to call the cops on you. If you look at me, if you this, if you that. She called the cops on me that day. She had me arrested. That was my first arrest. Got me kicked out of the house.
So it's the first application of the silver bullet.
Right. I didn't even know, but I knew because my lawyer told me. But it's funny because my lawyer told me it would happen. And up until that point, I had respect for the judicial system. Now I go, oh my God, what a fucking joke.
Yeah.
This is a kangaroo court. Suffolk County is I have no respect. Zero respect for the court system here. I really do piss on the court system. It's disgusting. It's a joke. But I didn't know. I learned you respect cops and you respect the court and the truth will always come out. So I didn't believe that she would ever do this because I said, they're going to go after her because I never hit her. Mm-hmm. Well, sure as hell, she goes in there and goes to court without me being there. And they show up and I'm arrested for hitting her. But she was a step further. Not only did I hit her, I did it in the presence of my daughter. And she brought my daughter who was... So
this was an allegation of something that never took place.
Right where we're sitting. My daughter was sitting. We had an argument and she made sure she did it. This is how cunning she was. She did it with my daughter, who was, I guess, 11 at the time, present. So then what she did was she takes my daughter to the police to give a statement that she saw me hit her mother. Well, that's pretty powerful because why would your daughter lie, corroborate the statement? So the judge, in her defense, Marlene Budd, gives my wife an ex parte order of protection because she doesn't know any better. Well, I show up the next day in court and I'm wearing shorts because I'm kicked out of the house with shorts and a shirt. And I said, I'd like to go in and get my stuff, and I'd like to ask for a quick hearing. And this disgusting piece of shit woman, Marlene Budd, says, you've already caused enough trouble. If you go in there again and cause any more trouble, you're going to sit in jail. I said, I'm innocent until proven guilty.
Exactly.
I was such a fool to believe that. That was it. I had a bullet on my head. It took me months. I had no contact with my children. I had a stay away order of protection because my daughter was present. And then every time they would go to court, they would stall it. Finally, I went in and I kept demanding, I want a trial. I'm not seeing my kids. I want my day in court. And I got a judge, Ed Simeone, and he finally says, listen, the guy's right, to her lawyer. He wants a trial. He has a right. He's never had his day in court, and he's losing his kids. So her lawyer, Don Schlimbaum, a real sleazebag. I say sleazebag, but anybody who's watching shouldn't think sleazebag in a good way, because people say, oh, I want a sleazy lawyer. He ended up really doing wrong by his client, my ex-wife, because she could have got a much better deal and not spent money, and she did. But so I don't want to be confused. He's not a good guy. He's the one who told her to get the order of protection and do all these other things. So we go to court, and the guy goes, okay, we're having a trial in 2 days. CPS comes up to me, a woman's advocacy group, which leads to what I did, gets on my wife's side, and they're hugging her and supporting her, telling her, don't take a settlement. And the law guardian comes to me at the time and says, look, you're not going to see your kids. I'm telling you right now, the judge is going to give her the order of protection. Your daughter said that you did it, and she said you did it. So I said, but I have proof. Now, I knew I had the whole thing on tape. So they don't know this. And I said, you just watch. I'm going to trial. She says, well, just agree to take a stay-away order of protection and have supervised visits and give her custody. Screw you. I'm not giving you anything.
Which is a deadly move to agree to anything.
That would have been it. But I didn't know at the time. But I will say, at that point, I had hired a big lawyer, Raoul Felder, and he told me, listen, if you go to trial and you lose, they can't do more than take away your kids. So what's the downside? Go in there and go to trial. So I knew I had my tape. So I go in there with my audio recording, and I go through the whole the trial. She has her lawyer, and they're all rehearsed. Oh, how did you do the kids? How did he hit you? Did your daughter see it? Yes, she was present. He has a history of abuse. All of a sudden I have a history. She forgets that she told all the psychiatrists that I never hit her. And we go through the motions, and I'm cross-examining her myself, and I'm locking her into the story. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Okay, I'd like to play the tape. And her lawyer goes, oh, you can't play the tape. We didn't authenticate it. It might not be real. I said, oh, let's just play it. And if it doesn't sound real, you tell me. And then we won't. I wanted the judge to hear that she was the one causing the fight, and there was no hitting. So the judge lets me play the tape. I said, he plays the tape through, and she listens to it, and it was very clear. The judge even says, is this the real tape, or do you believe he edited it? There was no way it was edited. So she, at that point...
This is a videotape or an audio tape?
This is an audio tape.
Audio tape.
And it was, first of all, it was clear I didn't hit her, but the most important thing was you could hear that she was actually the antagonist and saying, I am going to call the cops on you for anything I feel like. I am going to call them for this, for that, for that. But then the judge still didn't dismiss it. He still listened. And then I said, well, let me ask you this. Do I have a nanny cam in the house? She said, I don't know if you do. And I called her bluff. And I said, well, if I did, according to you, everything happened in the hallway in the presence of our daughter, and everything would be on tape because you just testified that you exactly where it happened. Correct? She says, well, I guess so. I take out a blank tape.
Videotape.
The funny thing was, I still remember it was an episode of Friends on a VHS at the time. And I slammed it on the table and I said, Judge, I ordered a video monitor to be brought in. Would you please bring, which I did, bring in a video monitor. And I said, Taryn, this is your last chance. Did I hit you? And her face turns red and she says, wait a minute. I'm confused. I'm totally confused. It happened. You did hit me, but you hit me outside. After she just did
story changes.
This whole story changed, and then she figured out maybe it wouldn't. Then the judge would think it wasn't on tape. She didn't rehearse this, so the judge knew it, and he called her a liar.
Pretty bold move to have it.
But I had nothing to lose again. I had nothing to lose. I thought I should have won anyway because I had the audio tape. But this was like there was no way.
Sealed the deal. Okay.
And I thought the judge should have arrested her. That was when I first realized there's no justice because right then. To me, the judge should have called the court officer and said, I want her under arrest. She just perjured herself. I mean, this wasn't a little thing. I was kept from my kids for almost 2 months. So the judge says, go back to your house.
Well, I want to back up because you did mention there was a women's
right.
women's
There was
group,
a women's rights organization that was there and took her side. And one of the
which I just want to stop for the record and say, I believe in the help that you get. I believe in the support for the women's groups. I don't want us to sound
Right.
like this is a father's rights only kind of conversation.
Right, but what bothered me was they didn't know the story. And they were encouraging her to keep the kids from me. And they took her side. And to some point, I guess, in retrospect, they didn't know. She was very convincing. She had her mother and her sister sitting in court with her. Her mother I had no use for. She wasn't a nice woman. But her sister, who was there, was a very nice woman. She passed away, unfortunately, but had a great husband, great kids. And they were sitting there supporting her. And I really bothered me. But I said, I guess she tricked them too. She tricked me for all these years. So I guess, and if they really thought that I hit her, I guess that's why they were there. And I guess that's why the women's group was there. But it bothered me that they were taking her side without knowing it and encouraging her to do all this. Of course, once that happened, they were never with her again. So I guess to their credit, they did back off. But it was a problem because I felt like it was the court, the law guardian, CPS, and then this women's group all ganging up on me.
Well, it's hard also for the women's support group because she's deceptive. Your ex was deceptive.
Right, exactly. Oh, yeah.
And it's misleading.
Yeah. I mean, it was anger, but I mean, like I said, I really can't blame them because she was very convincing. I mean, she was up on the stand even telling how I hit her. Her neck turned red and she started crying. She had to take time off. She was choked up, literally tears rolling down her face, talking about reliving how I hit her, which wasn't even true.
So it was an award-winning performance.
It was. It truly was. So the judge says, go back to your house and go be with your kids. I come back to the house. Carlos, I think that was my first time in years that I started crying because I walked in and my house was destroyed. First of all, I got to the house, the locks were changed. So we had to go through the police who called her up and said, you have to let him in. It's his house. Where's the key? She tells me where there's a hidden key. I come into the house. My whole house is deadbolt. Every door's got deadbolts. My kids' bedrooms have deadbolts on them. Everything that had to do with me or my family was removed. There wasn't a picture in sight. There was pictures of me and my family all over. And with the kids, there wasn't a picture of me. You would never know I lived in the house.
So you're beginning to be erased. On top of not seeing your children for how long at that point?
Before that, I was living here. So 6 weeks of not seeing them. She wiped me out of their lives. There wasn't a picture of me in the house. Now, remember, I had the master bedroom. Mm-hmm. She then took my son and moved him into the master bedroom. So now I come back. And what am I going to? I got to kick my kid out of the bedroom. But she basically, the message that I got was, okay, Ryan, now you're taking your dad's place and he's gone. Every room had deadbolts. I come to find out that they were told that was to protect the kids from me because she stuck with the story that I was dangerous, and even the judge thinks he's dangerous.
So you go from a loving dad to suddenly you're a dangerous person to be around your own children.
6 weeks, my kids never, to this day, ever told me they love me again. They never hugged me again. Now, my daughter, it was a huge problem. Remember, she told the police that she saw me hit her mother. How does she look at me in the face knowing that she lied? Mm-hmm. They never thought I'd get back in the house. When I came back to the house, Carlos, on my kitchen counter, all the divorce papers, which you shouldn't even show the kids, were all spread out, there was nothing hidden. I took them all. It was great. It was, that was my intel. She left it all out on the counter.
Well, one of the big things, the point of interviewing people is I want really people to see what takes place in the home and the damage it does psychologically to the children. So at this point, they don't see you. They begin to be programmed to dislike you to the extent
they were told that they would never see me unsupervised. So all of a sudden, she goes to court. Then she never thought I was going to be back. Now remember, I had private investigators, so I know her lawyer's telling her, "Don't worry, they never let the guy back in the house." I know this. So she was so sure of it that, like I said, she had her divorce papers out. She thought there was no way I was coming back. So she told the kids, "Listen, Dad's never coming back to the house. He's done. He's never coming back." And all of a sudden I'm back. What do the kids think?
Yeah.
It was like all of a sudden I'm back.
A lot of damage is done.
It was done. That broke the bond between me and my kids. They couldn't look at me ever again the same. And like I said, they never said they loved me again. I could never kiss them. If I went, when they came back.
It's heartbreaking.
That time I went to hug them. And they pushed away from me. Literally, It's amazing as it sounds. The bond was literally broken in that 6 week period.
Yeah, that's just quite a bit of heartache and heartbreak that goes with that. To love your children, have them turned against you, is devastating.
Right. I didn't know anything about alienation. I thought I'm going to come home and I'm going to hug my kids and we missed you, Dad. No, the bomb was broken.
That's so terrible. You would also, I want to go back a little bit because the pictures painted of you as being a dangerous person. So you're a loving dad, suddenly you're dangerous. And the silver bullet application, how did that affect you with your neighbors and in particular neighborhood proximity to a school?
Right. Well, I think, I'm estimating that I was arrested about 13 times, or 13 orders of protection. I think that was the number. So, I mean, meaning the cops show up, the sheriffs show up, you got to get out of the house, you leave, or sometimes you just get an order of protection, and then the judge doesn't want to do it, kick you out, so they'll give a refrain from, but probably 13 orders of protection. And she had told the neighbors.
These are all unfounded.
Right. I've never been, none of them were ever, they were either at a trial dismissed, or she would wait till the end, the 11th hour, and drop it or make some kind of bullshit settlement. But because she told all the neighbors that, hey, he's never coming back to the house, they all, quote, took her side. One neighbor said, told something, well, we don't talk to Gary because he made allegations about his wife having affairs, which we don't believe. The neighbor across the street, who, of course, she was having an affair with the guy, of course the wife didn't want to believe it. It was her best friend. So it's easier for them not to talk to me. Gary's crazy. Another neighbor just moved in. They probably thought, this guy's crazy. Now remember, after these silver bullets weren't working, most people, they do work. But because I was a step ahead of her, they didn't really do what they wanted to do. So she went, let me try CPS. I don't know, was that the golden bullet? I don't know, but she tried
platinum.
She tried CPS, which is a disgusting organization. The idea of protective services is great, but as I've come to find out now, they don't protect children. You see all the time that children who really are abused, as long as the parents say the same thing, they leave them with them. But it's used in divorces all the time. I mean, to me, if you come to my house and wait a minute, you were fine for 13 years, you adopted this kid, no problem. All of a sudden, my wife calls CPS on me, Child Protective Services, and now I'm a child abuser. And the allegation was against my daughter that years earlier, I had stuck my hands down my daughter's pants inappropriately. And what I thought was interesting, well, then why would you leave me alone in the house with her? And she had a neighbor, Cindy Salasanis, who she was going to have testify to the same, which I thought was funny because probably a month earlier or 2 months earlier, I took my daughter and her daughter camping and slept in a tent with her. This person, according to her, is telling CPS that I was sexually inappropriate with my daughter.
Years before.
Yeah, years before. Then there was one that years before my son came to the one that her son from biological marriage and said, why does Daddy always have to stick his penis in our faces? And that was an allegation.
Tremendous.
The third allegation was that I forced my daughter and son to go to a Broadway show against their will. And I told my daughter she had to brush her hair. So the CPS worker comes and she asked me, and of course the other time I'm denying it, and I tell her how ridiculous it is. She says, but did you force your daughter to go to see Fiddler on the Roof? I said, yes, I did. Her name was Pamela Hammond. I want to say that because maybe she's watching. Disgusting woman. She says, yes, I said, yes, I did. She says, you can't do that. I said, what do you mean I can't do that? I can't force my daughter to go? I had tickets to go. I said we're going. They were looking forward to it. And remember, we're living in the same house. As we're walking out, my wife says, you're not going. You don't have to go with your father. He can't force you to go. And I said, get in the damn car, and we're going. I get him in the car, we go, I have pictures, we have a great day. Maybe they didn't like the play, who cares, an hour and a half. We went to Central Park, and like I said, we have pictures. And I show them, look, we had a great day. It doesn't matter, you can't force them. And of course I force them to go to school, I force them to go to the doctor. I'm the parent, don't you tell me.
Which before the divorce, that's the right of any parent, is to guide their children to maybe tell them that I don't agree with you, or I'm going to be a parent. You are going to do this. You are going to go to school.
That's how you do
have to get dressed.
Certain things you have to do. Certain things are optional.
So you lose your ability to actually be a parent to your own children.
But I admitted it. I guess my mistake was I admitted to this woman, and I was pissed that she was even making a big deal. And she says, well, you're doing, it ended up, here's where her bias came in. She said, well, you're doing to your wife what my ex did to me. I said, what is that, Miss Hammond? She said, you're trying to take the kids away from her. I said, what do you mean? I'm the father. Why aren't you mad that she's trying to take them from me? In fact, it wasn't true. I was trying to go shared custody. She was trying to take them. Anyway, she was so furious at me. I get the paper in the mail. and I'm actually found guilty of child abuse.
For taking him to a Broadway show.
Called inadequate guardianship. I think I'm a level 3 child abuse offender. I can't be a certain distance from a school, which I live across the street from a school.
Which I find amazing.
I can't go to the school, of course. I can't coach any activities. So now my wife gets a copy of the letter. She sends it to everybody. So now that alienates me and I can't blame my kids' friends who used to always come over my house. We had a pool, we had a nice yard, that they would always come over. Now they're not allowed over anymore. And my kids would tell me, well, Dad, they can't come over anymore when you're here. So that further alienated. And I can't blame the parents. Like I said, they got the letter. It took about a year before we finally went to trial on it. And the judge, Reginald Brantley, said how ridiculous it was. Actually, the state didn't even put on their case CPS because they knew it was ridiculous. So that he said, look, if you're not going to put on your case, he's going to win. And she said, yeah, we know. He said, but the guy has been on the child abuse list for a year. She said, yeah, we know. It's okay. We're going to let him go.
The damage is done, though.
The damage was done. They didn't care if I got off. But the judge, I will say in his fairness, he said, well, look, I don't want to reverse it because then she'll tell everybody he had a good lawyer and he got it reversed. He said, I'm changing the original paperwork to originally unfounded. But it didn't matter because she already had the paper in her hand. After I was found unfounded, I said, now you need to tell everybody who you told that I was guilty. She said, no, I don't.
Which
you
she'll
tell
never
them.
do.
Which, of course, she would never did. And we talked about the school. As you can see, the school is literally across the street from my house.
Which I would like to show how
one of the
close
reasons that we bought the house. So during the first order of protection, this judge gives me, I think it was 15 minutes to come back and get my stuff. She says, call the police and get an escort.
Which is a ridiculous amount of time to grab any belongings.
Right.
15 minutes.
Well, you'll find out that it actually was a lot. So I call the police and I say, look, my wife has an order of protection against me. I need an escort to go into the house. I have 15 minutes. What do I do? He says, well, where do you live? I tell him. He says, what's nearby? I said, well, there's a school across the street from my house. He says, okay, go to the school, stay in your car, and call us, and we'll be there in 5 to 10 minutes, and we'll go over it. No problem. Go across the street to the school. I'm sitting in the parking lot. I call the police. I just pulled up. I'm here. I have a friend with me to help me do it. The policeman comes. He starts to walk in the house with me. All of a sudden, the sheriff show up. What the heck's going on? My wife called the sheriff on the police, saying that I shouldn't have been at the school. I'm violating the order of protection. So now it turns into a shit show, and the cops are like, you were at the school. You have a stay away order of protection. I said, I told you on the phone. It's a recorded line. In fact, I recorded it too. He goes, well, you're going to be under arrest for violating the order of protection because you didn't tell us it said it's school. I said I have a stay away order of protection. You told me go to the school. I mean, this is what the nonsense that goes on. So now the cops are mad because the sheriff's here saying he wasn't allowed to go to the school. She's demanding that the sheriff arrest me because the police, it was just a mess.
It's a ridiculous
So then I come into the house with a friend and I start to get my stuff. And she says, what are you doing? I said, I'm taking my stuff. Well, I found out that all she had to do was tell the police, well, it's in dispute. Everything that I went to pick up was in dispute. So then what am I getting? He goes,
so you can't collect any of your belongings.
I can't get my business stuff. I couldn't get my computers, everything. You can't get it, you can't get it, you can't get it. I said, what am I getting? He goes, you could take any medication and clothing and leave. So I leave. I end up having to go back to court. I said, I can't run my business. I don't have anything. And I had this same bitch judge who says, oh, again, don't cause any more trouble. I'll give you 10 minutes. Now I come back and I have to make an appointment. And her sister is here. And she's, we're going to document everything you leave the house. I still didn't get everything. So I learned my lesson with that one. But imagine I'm trying to go to work, deal with court, and I can't have anything.
Which the process is stressful. We mentioned in the beginning how the process really ages you. It causes health issues, like your health declines, your physical appearance changes. And, we really didn't touch upon the major factor on what affects your health, your mental health and your physical health is the distance that's caused between your children. The children are no longer talking to you. You've been through this with the order of protection and the false allegations with CPS. What was it like to be in the home when all this was going on and your children are now not speaking to you?
Yeah. Well, when I was in here, they were doing their mother's bidding, I guess you could say. For example, I would drive in the car, and if my speedometer went over 60 miles an hour, they would be in the back seat taking pictures to send to their mother, to have them do their bidding. They would make up lies because they knew that their mother wanted to hear bad things about me. So they would say, "Oh, Dad cooked a horrible dinner tonight. He doesn't feed us. He doesn't do this. Everything I did was wrong." And they went from being loving kids to being spies. It was like I was divorcing all of them, and they were all on her side. And that was because I never fought back. And, I don't know what the answer is. My family sometimes says, well, you deserve this. You didn't deserve it, but you asked for it because you never fought back. And there was a court order that said you couldn't discuss the divorce with the kids. So they knew about everything from her.
It's hard to try to make this as amicable as possible and then to have these surreptitious attacks taking place.
And I don't defend myself.
So, naturally you would think I don't have to defend myself.
So I didn't defend myself. There was always all these, crazy allegations. She would literally tell them everything. I remember one time she was served, and the private investigator, we have her on videotape, and she would sat down at the kitchen table after she got the papers with my kids, reading them. The papers that she was served.
Incredible.
So they knew everything from her, nothing from me. In fact, at one point my mother said, I have to tell them the truth. I have to tell them that all you're going to court for is to share custody and to see them. And that their mother's just trying to get money from you and keep them from you. And I said, no, Mom, don't do it. We're not supposed to involve the kids. Let her be the bad one. Somebody's going to realize this one day. And it ended up that nobody ever did. And, maybe not, but it made the alienation easier. And, it was, like I said, people say it was a slow process. It was to some extent, but really that first time I got kicked out of the house, that was a huge point. After that, it was never the same. And then the rest was a slow progression of her keeping them from me, bad-mouthing me. My wife actually told my son, told him, if you ever go with your father again, I will never love you. You'll be dead to me. Do you understand me? And my son was hysterical crying. And she
the emotional damage is irreversible.
My son was in his bed. She's literally screaming, do you understand me? If you ever talk to him, I will never love you. You're done. Screaming at a I guess he was probably 12 at the time, maybe. I don't remember the exact age.
It's a horrible
and she
thing
basically
to do
admitted to doing it. And still nothing happened.
Yeah.
Imagine doing that to a kid. Now, for me, they knew that I would always make sure I told them that I'll always love you, no matter what. I guess, my daughter, when she testified, lied against me. Subsequently, she had my son lie and say that he saw me violate an order of protection, which wasn't true. Maybe he believed it. Maybe he was brainwashed, too. But it was just, the emotional, you go through like I can't even explain it, like a grieving process, I didn't see him for 6 weeks. I came back, I saw him, but they weren't the same. They started to come around. We ended up sharing custody, and I had them back and forth, but it would take a couple days for them to come around. But every time they would lose a little piece of being my kids.
Yeah, you slowly become more invisible.
A little bit, and then to some extent that my daughter started, acting like she was my wife, because their whole mindset changed, that I was the bad guy. My whole family was bad guys. And it even went down to my nephew, who at the time I think was 1, and we said, why don't you want to see him? And she's, he's annoying, he's an asshole. He's 1 year old. He's a baby. Who doesn't like a little baby boy?
Sure.
But then it ended up, well, your whole family's a bunch of bitches. We hate your family. It just
the alienation extends to family and friends.
And her family was great, and my family was bad. Of course, her family did have some good people, in it. It's sad that I had found out throughout the process that her one sister who lived in North Carolina was also participating in the alienation, which I think makes it easier because now you have somebody validating what they said. She had her mother validating what a bad person I was.
Yeah.
So I think that made it easier, whereas my family wasn't doing any of that when they saw them.
Gary, this is a pretty big size house. Why is it that you're still in a house that's this big?
Well, actually, it's a pretty big financial burden to have,
Sure.
a 4-bedroom, 2-story house with a pool and no kids. The reason is in the divorce, it was important to me that I got the house. I say got the house. I had to buy my ex-wife out of the house. But it was important to me that I got the house because I figured this is the kids' home. And there was good memories. I had good memories, and I figured the kids would have good memories. And I always wanted them to know that there was a place for them to come home. So I kept the house. I've never, people say, oh, you could bring in somebody else. You can, you could rent all the rooms. And I didn't, because there's still a hope, maybe it's false hope, that one day the kids will come home and come back to their bedrooms. And in fact, for 6 years, maybe 7 years after the divorce, their rooms stayed exactly the same. I redid the house, but I left their rooms the way they were. They had their bedspreads on. They had the same things. And actually, it's funny. And it was sad. I didn't almost go in the rooms because it was painful to go in the rooms, but I knew they were there. And one day I was watching a Dr. Phil show, and there was a woman who lost a child, and the room was the same for like 20 or 30 years, never changed it. And Dr. Phil said, that's not healthy because you're not moving on. Your kid's gone. He's not coming back. And it's time. It's not. You have to move on. So after that, I said, you know what? I need to move on because I need to heal. And I wasn't healed. I was in pain all the time. So I ended up, taking out their carpet, painting their walls, and making it a different room. But it is still their. They are still their rooms. When people come over, my girlfriend come over, like, okay, your granddaughter will stay in Carly's room. Your son will sleep in Ryan's room. It's still their room.
Gary, I want to talk about because. Now, the children no longer live in your house. And, we briefly talk about the emotional toll and how hard it is and there's a grieving process. And I couldn't help but notice when I'm in your home that you still have pictures of the children on your wall, photo albums. Maybe we could kind of take a look at your house to show people what it's like to have these reminders of this painful process and now to be in the home with empty bedrooms where your children used to live. So we'll be able to look around?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So Gary, one of the things, you mentioned how painful it is to be alienated, and right here every day, years after, you still have pictures of your children on the wall. Like, how hard is that?
Well, it was actually something I really consciously thought of because I said, I don't want to have nothing in the house with the kids, but I don't want to be reminded every day. And there was some more current pictures of the kids, but these are really snapshots from before things got really bad and before they changed. So this is like my snapshot in time because remember, when you don't see your kids, time stops. To me, they're still 15, 16 years old, even though they're in their 20s now, because I don't see them. When people ask me, oh, how old are your kids? The people who know me, I really have to think about it. Because, again, I missed their 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd. I missed all these birthdays, and that's sort of what, in your mind, you remember the days by. I have to go back and think, because I wasn't there. So, in my mind, that's still the age that they're at. It's sort of like frozen in time. But I wanted this here because I could have them in my bedroom, but I didn't want to, and I did for a while. But then I find myself getting upset at night and staring at the pictures. So this is sort of like something you just walk by and you glance out of the corner of your eye, and it's just a reminder that they're still there, that they're still alive, and hopefully this is their house, this is the entrance. But I don't have a whole house like a shrine, because to me, if you have a shrine like that, to me that's like they're dead and it's permanent, they're gone, and they're not. I'm hoping that one day, that they do come to themselves and get the courage to come and
come back around
and be part of a loving father and a loving family.
All right. Well, and I also noticed that you have some empty bedrooms now. Again, I feel as a reminder. So I'll see if maybe you could show me those photo albums you had in the den, and then maybe we could take a quick peek at the bedrooms if you don't mind.
Sure. Come on up.
Okay, so Gary, want to thank you for letting me come up into your home. So who used to stay in this room here?
So well, originally this was Casey's bedroom. Then when he went off to college, Carly, who had the smallest room because she was the younger, she moved in to this room. But as I said, I took out a lot of the stuff. I still kept Carly's dresser. The reason I kept that one because she had put all these stickers all over her dresser, and you see her name is on it. So that's what it was like, her personality at the time. So really that's the main piece of furniture that I kept. But you can see I painted the room, but I didn't put anything on the walls because I figured if they come back, then they could put their stuff and they could decorate it the way they used to want to have it. Over here,
what is this?
This was Carly's room, her first room. And this one I actually, a little bit different. I didn't paint the walls in this room because this was something her mother painted the walls, and she really liked that she had these pink spotted walls. So I left that one because I thought that was really a part of her. I don't know why. For some reason, I left her room a little bit more than the boys' rooms. I left one of the pictures that she had on the wall when she was here. Over here, this is something that she did. This is a painting that she put on the wall, and she thought it was funny to have a picture frame painted right on the wall. So I left that here as well.
Okay. And there's one more room here down the hall.
And this was Ryan's bedroom. I guess yeah, the biggest one, I guess. But yeah, so this is Ryan's bedroom. You know, like I said, it's just painted over, and you can see it's pretty empty. You know, the house is empty because there's no kids living here. It's sad. I'll show you the albums in my room. So this is all my divorce paperwork. From the beginning, I kept every single record of everything in my divorce. I have every email, every text message, 2011. These are all binders of text messages and emails. And then I have, basically what I did was I used file boxes by the year. So I have 2011 here, 2010. Then this is just individual folders you can see here. You know, from this is A to D, and then I got D to Z. So every single one of these boxes is filled with divorce papers. But that wasn't enough. I have more room. So then we have over here another 8 boxes. And then in the corner, which they sort of got covered up, about another 12 boxes. And I still ran out of room. So I have them all over everywhere in this office. There's binders full of divorce papers. I mean, that shows you how much was generated in this divorce. It's absolute insanity. You know, just simple, because part of what they did was, the strategy was they were trying to litigate me into submission. In fact, here's one. This is one of my favorite ones over here. This is was served with a motion to answer interrogatories. And I said, I can't answer this. This is way too big. They said, well, if you don't answer it, Gary, they're going to come after you and say you didn't do it. And you can see right here in the front, this is my response to the interrogatories dated 2006. This is my copy, which had to be bound. I don't know how many thousands of pages of work this is. Every bank statement, stock statements, phone records, everything. I had to make 5 copies of these and bring them in a hand truck to court. How ridiculous is that? It was just a total waste of time and money.
Did you look at it?
Nobody ever looked at it, of course. But if I didn't do it, it would have been used against me in court. So I just have papers like this all over the place, the absurdity of it. And this isn't even my cabinet where I have all my video evidence, my recordings. That's all in the safe upstairs. It's just all over the place. It consumed my life. How is somebody supposed to have a job at the same time that they're doing this? And I remember I had a full-time job making a good living, which was destroyed because of my divorce.
So Gary, I want to thank you for letting me come here and you know, talk to you and to look around your home. It's hard, and I think one of the things I want to do is convey how much happens in the emotional turmoil you go through. Obviously, we can't encapsulate everything you've been through, but you know, I know it's hard. I know you personally, so I know how much you miss the children and how hard you try to live a normal life after. So, you know, I'm sorry if I stirred up any painful memories, but I thank you for sharing with us.
You know, it's been, you know, it's hard reliving it. Let's stop the camera 1 second. Sorry about that. You know, it's you know, so many years, and you hold in the emotion, you know, and you know, part of me doesn't want to show the emotion, like, you know, like you said, I let it go. But, you know, I don't want my ex-wife to see the pain that she caused, because that's what she thrives off of. That's her energy. That's her fuel, was the pain that she caused in my family, the pain that she caused in my kids and me. Yeah, I've gone on with my life. You know, honestly, you know, you can't be depressed forever. And I did it for a long time, but you know what? I made a good, you know, life. I'm happy now. Yeah, is there an empty part of me? Yes, but you know, my goal now is to help other people.
Do you feel that you're in the acceptance part of the grief process?
Yeah, I definitely do. You know, I think you could have gone either way. I could have gone down the road of just being depressed all the time and saying, you know what, this fucking bitch ruined my life, ruined my kid's life, and being angry all the time. But that's not who I am. I'm not an angry person. You know, my nature is to help people and to be good. And I just turned it into, I'm going to take that negative and turn it into a positive and use it to help other people. I don't dwell every day on where's my kids. You know, I went through that. You know, I went through that crying every day. Every time somebody says, oh, how's your kids? You know, what do you say? Well, they don't talk to me. You know, well, they'll come around. Don't worry, they'll come around. No, they're not going to come around because they have no permission as long as their mother's alive. I don't, you know, those days are over now. You know, I just say, they don't talk to me. You know, that's it. I move on. Sure. You can't dwell on it. It's not, you can't live. You know, you and I know a lot of people, you know, commit suicide, depression, and you have to live. They took away 11 years of my life. Took away a lot of my kids' lives. I can't control that. I can't control what they did to me, and I won't let them get any more of my life. You know, I'm happy now. You know, I have my girlfriend, I have a granddaughter, I have amazing, amazing friends that I met through this process. And that's right where my happiness comes from. It's just realigning my life. I'm not a father anymore. You know, I'm not. I'm just, you know, I'm a boyfriend, I'm an advocate, I'm a good friend of a lot of people, but that's the way it is. God had other plans.
Well, I've known so many women who have put me to the wall. I've always been the victim of a smile.
That was funny.
When you came along, babe, you turned me inside out. You cut me down and you set my soul on fire.
Get a free ride.
Now I'm going, gone.
Surprised you put us in your face.
You'll feel